the red sun of Kepler 442 be hung low in the alien sky, casting long shadows across the battlefield that had been silent for 100 years. Dr. Maya Henderson knelt in the crystallized sand, her scanner beeping steadily as it searched for traces of human technology buried beneath the surface. The wind carried no sound except the whisper of dust moving across the desolate landscape. Maya had spent 3 years planning this expedition. As Earth's leading expert on human military history, she knew every detail of the Great War of 2387. She had read every report, studied every battle plan, and memorized the names of every hero who died on this distant world. But there was something about the final battle that never made sense to her. Too many questions remained unanswered. Her team spread out across the ruins of Firebase Alpha, the last human stronghold on the planet. Jake Morrison and his 7th Colonial Marine Division had made their final stand here, holding the line while Earth's evacuation fleets escaped to safety. According to the official records, Morrison died in the final assault, his body vaporized by enemy fire. He became a legend, the man who saved humanity by sacrificing himself, but Maya had found inconsistencies in the reports. Small details that didn't match up, equipment readings that made no sense, radio transmissions that cut off at strange moments. She had convinced the colonial authority to fund this expedition by promising to solve these mysteries and honor the fallen heroes properly. "Dr. Henderson, you need to see this," called Danny Clark, her pilot and expedition coordinator. He was standing near what remained of the command bunker, holding his scanner with a confused expression. "I'm getting some weird readings over here." Maya stood up, brushing the red dust from her knees. She walked over to where Danny was pointing his scanner at a patch of ground that looked identical to everything else around them. The device was beeping rapidly, indicating something metallic buried just below the surface. "What kind of readings?" May asked, pulling out her own scanner. "Metal alloy, definitely human origin. But there's something else. It's giving off a faint energy signature." "After 100 years, nothing should still be powered," Danny replied. Frowning at his screen, Maya's scanner confirmed what Danny had found. There was something down there, something that shouldn't exist. All human technology on this planet had been destroyed or had run out of power decades ago. She felt her heart rate increase as she realized this could be the breakthrough she had been looking for. "Lisa, Alex, get over here," she called to the other 2 members of her team. Lisa Park was their engineer, a quiet woman who could make any piece of technology work. Alex Kane handled communications and data analysis, his mind sharp enough to spot patterns others missed. The 4 of them gathered around the anomaly. Maya made the decision quickly. "We dig here." Carefully. "If there's still active technology down there, we don't want to damage it." They worked for 2 hours using small hand tools to avoid disturbing whatever lay beneath. The red sand was packed hard by a century of wind and weather, but gradually they exposed a metal surface. It was curved and black, with a familiar shape that made Maya's breath catch in her throat. "It's a helmet," Lisa whispered. "A colonial marine combat helmet." Maya's hands trembled as she carefully brushed away the last of the sand. The helmet was in perfect condition, as if it had been placed there yesterday. The black metal showed no signs of corrosion or damage. Most impossibly, there were lights still glowing faintly along its edges. "How is this possible?" Alex asked, voicing what they were all thinking. "Nothing could survive 100 years buried in this environment and still have power." Maya examined the nameplate on the helmet's forehead. The letters were clear and unmistakable. LT, Commander Jake Morrison, 7th Colonial Marines. She felt the world spin around her. According to every official record, Morrison's body had been completely destroyed. There should be nothing left of him. "Maybe someone else was wearing his helmet," Danny suggested, but his voice lacked conviction. Maya shook her head. "Colonial Marine helmets are biometrically locked. They only work for the person they're assigned to. This helmet could only be powered by Morrison himself." She reached out and touched the helmet gently. The moment her fingers made contact, the lights along its edges flared brighter. The team stepped back in surprise as the helmet systems came fully online. A holographic display materialized above the faceplate, showing text in the standard colonial marine format. Neural interface active, the helmet announced in a mechanical voice. Downloading stored message. Authentication confirmed. Playing message now. The holographic display flickered and changed, showing the face of a man in his 30s. His dark hair was messy, his face dirty with the grime of battle, but his eyes were alert and determined. Maya recognized him immediately from the historical records. It was Jake Morrison, exactly as he had appeared during the final battle. "If you're seeing this message, then someone has found my helmet," Morrison's image said. "I don't know how long it's been, but I'm recording this in case I don't make it back. My name is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, 7th Colonial Marines. The date is September 15th, 2387. Maya's team stood frozen, watching the impossible message from a man who had been dead for a century," Morrison continued. "I need whoever finds this to know that the official reports are wrong. I didn't die in the final battle. The war isn't over. I'm still alive and I need help. I've discovered something here that changes everything about what we thought we knew about this war." The hologram flickered, showing static for a moment before Morrison's face returned. "I've found technology here that the Zephyrians were trying to claim, ancient technology older than both our species. I've used it to prevent them from getting what they came for, but I'm trapped. I can't get back on my own." Maya felt her scientific training warring with the impossibility of what she was seeing. Holographic messages could be faked, but the helmet systems were genuine colonial marine technology. The biometric locks, the neural interface, the power source, everything was authentic. "Listen carefully," Morrison's image said, his voice urgent. "I'm sending you coordinates. It's a star system beyond the galactic rim, uncharted in our databases. The Zephyrians found it first, but they can't access it without the key. I have that key, and I've been keeping it from them. But I can't hold out much longer." The hologram changed to show a star map, with a path marked from their current location to a point far beyond known space. The coordinates appeared as text. Alongside the map, precise down to the decimal point, Morrison's face returned to the display. "I know this sounds impossible. I know you'll think this is some kind of trick or malfunction, but I'm asking you to trust me. I've been fighting this war for longer than you know, and I need extraction. The fate of humanity depends on it." The message began to repeat, but Maya barely heard it. Her mind was racing, trying to process what she had just witnessed. If Morrison was really alive, it meant everything they knew about the end of the war was wrong. It meant the hero of humanity had been trapped somewhere for 100 years, still fighting. "This has to be a malfunction," Alex said, his voice shaking. "People don't live for 100 years in space. It's impossible." But Maya was staring at the star map, memorizing the coordinates. Something deep in her gut told her this was real. The desperation in Morrison's voice, the specific details, the way his eyes looked directly at her as if he could see across time itself. It all felt genuine. "We need to report this to the Colonial Authority," Danny said. "They'll want to analyze the helmet." Maya made a decision that would change her life forever. "No, we're going to follow those coordinates first. If Morrison is really alive, he's been waiting for rescue for 100 years. We're not going to let him wait any longer." She picked up the helmet, feeling its weight in her hands. The greatest hero in human history was calling for help across a century of silence. Maya Henderson, xenorchaeologist and seeker of truth, was going to answer that call. 3 days later, Maya stood in the cargo bay of the research vessel Meridian, watching her team load supplies for what might be a one-way journey. The Colonial Authority had refused her request to investigate Morrison's coordinates. They called it a waste of resources and ordered her to return the helmet for analysis. Instead, Maya had made the hardest decision of her career. She was going to steal a ship and find Morrison herself. Danny Clark finished checking the navigation systems and walked over to her. "You know we're all going to be court-martialed for this, right?" he said, but there was no regret in his voice. "Stealing a Colonial Authority vessel is a serious crime." "Only if we get caught," Maya replied. And only if we're wrong about Morrison being alive. Lisa Park emerged from the engine room, wiping grease from her hands. The hyperdrive is ready. I've modified the power systems to handle the long jump to those coordinates. We'll have enough fuel for the trip there and back, but just barely. Alex Kane looked up from his communication station. I've managed to block our transponder signal. As far as anyone knows, the Meridian is still docked at the research station. We should have at least a week before they realize we're gone. Maya nodded. Her team had chosen to follow her despite the risks. They could all lose their careers, their freedom, even their lives on this mission, but they had all seen Morrison's message, and they all felt the same pull she did. A hero was calling for help across a century of silence. The fourth member of their team arrived just as they were preparing to launch. Colonel Ryan Burke was a decorated veteran who had served in the final years of the war against the Zephyrians. He was also one of the few people still alive who had known Morrison personally. I've been thinking about your message all night, Burke said as he boarded the ship. Jake Morrison was the finest soldier I ever served with. He was also the most stubborn man I ever met. If he says he's alive, then he's alive. If he says he needs help, then that's exactly what we're going to give him. Maya felt a wave of relief. Having Burke on their team gave them military expertise and credibility. More importantly, it meant someone who knew Morrison believed the message was real. The Meridian launched quietly from the research station, slipping away into the darkness of space. Maya watched the stars grow brighter as they left the planet's atmosphere behind. She was holding Morrison's helmet in her lap, its neural interface still glowing faintly. She had been studying it for 3 days, trying to understand how it could still be functioning after a century. Denny, set course for the coordinates Morrison gave us, she said. Maximum hyperdrive speed. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, Maya connected the helmet to the ship's computer system. She wanted to download any other information it might contain. What she found made her gasp in surprise. The helmet contained fragments of Morrison's memories stored in its neural matrix. The technology was far beyond anything the colonial Marines had during the war. Maya realized the helmet had been modified with alien technology, which explained how it had survived for so long. She began to access the memory fragments, experiencing Morrison's final days on Kepler 442b through his own eyes. What she saw changed. Everything she thought she knew about the war's end. The first memory showed Morrison in the command bunker, receiving reports from his scouts. They had discovered something buried beneath the planet's surface, something that wasn't human or Zephyrian. The alien structure was enormous, clearly ancient, and it was generating massive amounts of energy. Colonel, you need to see this, Morrison's communications officer had said in the memory. The Zephyrians aren't just trying to conquer this planet. They're trying to claim whatever is down there. Morrison had sent teams to investigate the structure. What they found was technology beyond human understanding. The aliens who built it had been gone for millions of years, but their machines still worked. The structure was some kind of gateway, capable of transporting matter across vast distances instantly. Maya watched through Morrison's eyes as he realized what the Zephyrians were planning. They weren't just invading human space. They were trying to use the alien gateway to bring their entire fleet through, bypassing all human defenses. If they succeeded, Earth would fall within days. The memory shifted to Morrison's final transmission to Earth. Maya had read the official transcript many times, but now she was seeing what really happened. Morrison had lied to his superiors. He told them he was preparing for a final defensive stand, but he was actually planning something else entirely. I'm sorry, General, Morrison said to the holographic image of his commander. I'm going to have to disobey orders. There's something here that's more important than my life or the lives of my men. I can't let the Zephyrians get their hands on this technology. The memory ended abruptly, but Maya understood what had happened next. Morrison had used the alien gateway to transport himself and the entire Zephyrian invasion fleet somewhere else. His final act wasn't a heroic last stand. It was a desperate gambit to save humanity by sacrificing himself. Maya, you need to see this, Alex called from his station. I'm detecting some kind of signal coming from the helmet. It's very faint, but it's definitely there. Maya disconnected from the memory system and brought the helmet to Alex's station. He had isolated the signal and was trying to decode it. The pattern was complex, but gradually a message began to emerge. It's Morrison, Alex said, his voice filled with excitement. He's still transmitting. The signal is coming from the coordinates he gave us. Maya listened to the faint transmission. Morrison's voice was older, more tired than in the recorded message, but it was definitely him. This is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, 7th Colonial Marines. I am alive and requesting immediate assistance. The situation here is critical. The Zephyrians are planning to escape, and I can't hold them much longer. The transmission was intermittent, cutting in and out, but Maya could make out enough to understand that Morrison was in active combat. She could hear weapons fire in the background, shouts of alarm, the sound of explosions. Whatever Morrison was fighting, it was happening right now. How long until we reach the coordinates? She asked Danny. At current speed, about 2 weeks? He replied. But Maya, those coordinates are way beyond charted space. We'll be completely on our own out there. Colonel Burke joined them at the communications station. That's definitely Jake's voice, he said after listening to the transmission. But how is he still fighting after all these years? No human can survive that long in combat. Maya accessed another memory fragment from the helmet. This one showed Morrison activating the alien gateway. The energy discharge was enormous, and she could see Morrison being caught in the blast. But instead of being killed, he was changed. The alien technology had somehow enhanced him, making him stronger, faster, more durable. The alien technology didn't just transport him, Maya realized. It transformed him. That's how he survived for a century. Lisa emerged from the engine room with a concerned expression. I've been monitoring our systems, and we're using more power than expected. The modified hyperdrive is working, but it's putting a strain on our engines. We might not have enough fuel for the return trip. Maya looked at her team, seeing the same determination in their faces that she felt in her heart. They had come too far to turn back now. Morrison had been fighting alone for 100 years, protecting humanity from an enemy they didn't even know still existed. We keep going, she said. Morrison saved humanity once. Now it's our turn to save him. The Meridian continued its journey. Through the darkness of space, carrying 4 people toward a destiny none of them could imagine. Behind them, the known galaxy grew smaller and more distant. Ahead of them lay the unknown, where humanity's greatest hero waited for rescue. As they traveled, Maya continued to study Morrison's memories. Each fragment revealed more about the alien technology and the true nature of the war. The Zephyrians weren't just conquerors, they were prisoners trying to escape from something even worse. And Morrison was the only thing standing between them and freedom. The helmet's neural interface pulsed with each transmission from Morrison. His voice grew weaker with each message, but his determination never wavered. He had been fighting for a century, and he would continue fighting until help arrived or until his strength finally failed. Maya held the helmet close, feeling the weight of a hero's sacrifice. In 2 weeks, they would reach the coordinates and learn the truth about Morrison's fate. Whatever they found there would change the course of human history forever. The Meridian dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of an impossible sight. Maya pressed her face against the viewport, trying to understand what she was seeing. The structure ahead of them was massive beyond comprehension, a geometric shape that seemed to twist and fold in ways that hurt to look at directly. What is that thing? Danny whispered, his hands frozen on the navigation controls. Alex was scanning the structure with every sensor they had. It's artificial, definitely not natural. The energy readings are off the charts, and Maya, it's old, really old. I'm talking millions of years. Colonel Burke stood behind them, his military training helping him stay calm despite the overwhelming sight. I've never seen anything like it in all my years of service. This isn't human or Zephyrian technology. Maya studied the readings on her screen. The structure was roughly spherical but covered in geometric patterns. that seemed to shift when she wasn't looking directly at them. It was easily the size of a small moon, floating in empty space with no star system around it. "I'm detecting life signs," Lisa called from her station. "Lots of them. Both human and Zephyrian, but there's something else too. Species I don't recognize." Morrison's voice crackled through the communications system, clearer now that they were close. "Unknown vessel, this is Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison. Identify yourself immediately. This area is under quarantine." Maya grabbed the communicator. "Morrison, this is Dr. Maya Henderson. We received your message from the helmet. We're here to help you." There was a long pause, then Morrison's voice returned, filled with disbelief. "Maya Henderson? The archaeologist? How did you find me? How long has it been?" 100 years, Commander. We found your helmet on Kepler 442b and followed the coordinates you left," Maya replied. Another pause, longer this time. When Morrison spoke again, his voice was heavy with emotion. 100 years? I knew it had been a long time, but I lost track. Listen carefully, Dr. Henderson. What you're looking at is a prison. I transported myself and the entire Zephyrian invasion fleet here during the final battle. We're all trapped inside. Maya felt her heart sink. Trapped? Can we get you out? It's not that simple. This place wasn't built by humans or Zephyrians. It was built by something called the Architects, an ancient race that died out millions of years ago. They created this prison to hold dangerous species, to keep them from threatening other civilizations. Danny was maneuvering the Meridian closer to the structure. As they approached, Maya could see sections of the surface that looked like docking bays. How do we get inside to reach you? There's a docking port on the north side. But Dr. Henderson, you need to understand what you're getting into. This isn't just a building, it's alive in a way. It feeds on conflict, grows stronger from every battle fought inside. And there have been a lot of battles. The Meridian attached to the docking port with a soft clang. Maya looked at her team, seeing the same mixture of fear and determination in their faces. They had come too far to turn back now. The atmosphere inside is breathable, Morrison continued. But the gravity is heavier than Earth normal. And Dr. Henderson, when you see me, don't be shocked. The prison has changed me. I'm not entirely human anymore. Maya led her team through the airlock and into the prison. The corridors were vast, with walls that seemed to be made of a material that was part metal, part stone, and part something else entirely. The lighting came from strips that ran along the ceiling. Casting everything in a blue-white glow, they followed Morrison's directions through a maze of corridors. Along the way, they passed other areas where they could hear sounds of conflict. Weapons fire, shouts in languages Maya didn't recognize, the sound of creatures that definitely weren't human. How many species are imprisoned here? She asked Morrison. Through the communicator, dozens. The Architects didn't just imprison the Zephyrians. They've been collecting dangerous species for millions of years. Every aggressive civilization that threatened galactic peace ended up here eventually. They reached a heavily fortified area where Morrison had established his command post. The door opened to reveal a man who was recognizably human but clearly changed. He was taller than he should have been, his muscles more defined, his eyes glowing with a faint blue light that matched the prison's illumination. "Jake Morrison," Colonel Burke said, stepping forward. "You look different, but I'd recognize you anywhere." Morrison smiled, and Maya was relieved to see that his humanity was still there despite the physical changes. "Ryan Burke, I should have known you'd be part of any rescue mission. You always were too stubborn to follow orders." They embraced briefly, then Morrison turned to Maya. "Dr. Henderson, I need you to understand the situation here. The Zephyrians aren't just prisoners. They're planning to escape. They've been working on it for the entire century I've been here." Maya looked around the command post. It was clearly designed for defense, with weapons and monitoring equipment that looked like a mix of human and alien technology. "How have you been fighting them for so long?" "The prison enhanced me when I first arrived. It needed a guardian, someone to maintain the balance between the different species. I've been fighting not just the Zephyrians, but dozens of other species that want to escape and continue their conquests. Alex was examining the monitoring equipment. These readings show massive energy buildups in different sections of the prison. What's causing that? Morrison's expression grew grim. The prison is failing. It was designed to hold these species temporarily until they could be reformed or relocated, but the architects were destroyed before they could complete their plan. Now the prison is breaking down from the constant conflict. Lisa was studying the structural readings. If this place collapses, what happens to everyone inside? We all die, Morrison said simply. But more importantly, every dangerous species. The architects ever imprisoned gets released back into the galaxy. The Zephyrians would be the least of our problems. Maya felt the weight of the situation settling on her shoulders. How long do we have? Days, maybe weeks? The prison's core systems are failing. Each battle weakens it further. And the Zephyrians know this. They're planning one final assault to break through the barriers and escape. Danny was looking at the tactical displays. Can't we just evacuate you and let the prison collapse? Morrison shook his head. The prison won't let me leave. As long as I'm the Guardian, I'm bound to this place. And if I abandon my post, the barriers will fail immediately. Every species in here will be free to return to their home territories and resume their conquests. Maya studied the alien technology around them. Her archaeological training was helping her understand the symbols and patterns she saw. The architects designed this as a temporary solution. There must be a way to complete their original plan. I've been trying to figure that out for a century, Morrison replied, but I'm a soldier, not a scientist. I know how to fight, but I don't know how to fix ancient alien technology. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the command post. Morrison rushed to the tactical displays, his expression darkening. They're starting their assault. The Zephyrians have convinced 3 other species to join them. This is the attack I've been dreading. Maya watched the displays showing multiple breaches in the prison's defenses. Creatures she couldn't identify were pouring through corridors, all heading toward the central core where the prison's main systems were located. What do you need us to do? Colonel Burke asked, already reaching for weapons. Morrison looked at each of them in turn. I need you to help me hold them off long enough for Dr. Henderson to study the prison systems. If anyone can figure out how to fix this place, it's her. But we're going to be fighting for our lives while she works. Maya felt a familiar thrill of discovery mixed with terror. She was about to study technology that was millions of years old, created by a species that had vanished from the galaxy. The fate of every civilization depended on her ability to understand what the architects had really intended. I'll need access to the central systems, she said. Morrison nodded grimly. The core is 3 levels down. But Dr. Henderson, once we start moving, will be in constant combat. The other species will do everything they can to stop us. Maya looked at Morrison's glowing eyes and saw the weight of a century of fighting. He had been protecting the galaxy single-handedly, buying time for a solution that might never come. Now it was her turn to find that solution. Let's go save the galaxy, she said. The corridors of the prison shook with explosions as Maya and her team fought their way toward the central core. Morrison led them through passages that twisted and turned in impossible directions, his enhanced abilities allowing him to move faster than any normal human. Behind them, the sounds of battle grew louder as more species joined the assault. Stay close, Morrison shouted over the noise of weapons fire. The prison changes its layout when it's under attack. If we get separated, you might never find each. Other again, Maya ducked as energy blasts flew over her head. She had never been in combat before, but her team was protecting her as they moved. Colonel Burke and Danny were covering their rear while Lisa stayed close to Maya, helping her carry the equipment she would need to study the prison systems. They reached a massive chamber that stretched up into darkness. In the center stood a pillar of crystalline material that pulsed with the same blue light as Morrison's eyes. The pillar was covered in symbols that seemed to move and change as Maya watched them. This is the core, Morrison said, breathing heavily. Everything that controls the prison runs through this system, but I've never been able to understand how it works. Maya approached the pillar carefully. The symbols were unlike anything she had ever seen, but there was something familiar about their patterns. She had spent years studying ancient civilizations, and she recognized the mathematical principles behind the design. It's not just a control system, she said, running her hands over the smooth surface. It's a computer, but also something more. The architects built this to make decisions about the species imprisoned here. Alex was setting up his equipment to analyze the energy patterns. The power readings are incredible. This thing is processing more information than 1,000 human computers working together. Morrison checked his weapons as explosions echoed from the corridors above them. Dr. Henderson, I need you to work faster. The other species are getting closer. Once they reach this chamber, I won't be able to protect you. Maya connected her scanner to the pillar and began downloading information. What she found made her gasp. The prison wasn't just holding dangerous species, it was studying them, learning about their psychology, their culture, their potential for change. The architects didn't want to destroy these species, she said, her voice filled with excitement. They wanted to save them. This prison was designed to be a rehabilitation center, a place where aggressive civilizations could learn to become peaceful. Lisa looked up from her own scanner. But rehabilitation would take time, maybe centuries for some species. How were the architects planning to manage that? Maya continued reading the data. They were going to use guardians, beings who understood both conflict and peace, who could guide the imprisoned species toward better choices. But the guardians had to volunteer. They had to choose to stay and help. Morrison's expression grew thoughtful. Is that what I became? A guardian? Yes, but not the kind the architects intended. You've been fighting for a century, maintaining the prison through force. But the system was designed for rehabilitation, not endless conflict. That's why it's failing. The chamber shook as another explosion rocked the prison. Morrison's tactical display showed enemy forces getting closer to their position. We're running out of time. What do you need me to do? Maya studied the symbols on the pillar more carefully. The prison can be converted back to its original purpose, but it needs a different kind of guardian. Someone who understands how to reform species instead of just fighting them. Colonel Burke was monitoring the entrances to the chamber. I can see movement in the upper passages. They'll be here in minutes. Maya felt the weight of decision pressing down on her. She had spent her career studying how civilizations rose and fell, how cultures changed and adapted. She understood the patterns of social development better than anyone alive. But becoming a guardian would mean staying in the prison forever? There's another problem, she said, her voice quiet. The conversion process requires someone to interface directly with the prison systems. It's dangerous. The person doing it might not survive. Morrison stepped forward. Then I'll do it. I've been here for a century already. My life is already committed to this place. Maya shook her head. You're a soldier, Jake. You've been fighting for so long that conflict is all you know. The prison needs someone who understands peace, who can teach these species how to live without war. She looked at her team, seeing the understanding in their faces. They knew what she was about to do. Maya, no, Danny said. There has to be another way. There isn't, Maya replied. This is what I've been preparing for my whole life. Every ancient civilization I've studied, every pattern of social change I've learned, it was all leading to this moment. Alex was reading the energy patterns more carefully. The conversion will take hours. Can we hold this position that long? Morrison was already positioning his weapons. We'll have to. But Maya, once you start the process, you can't stop. If the other species reach the core while you're interfaced with the system, they could kill you and destroy the prison permanently. Maya placed her hands on the pillar and felt the prison's consciousness touch her mind. It was alien but not hostile, desperate but not evil. The architects had created something beautiful, a system that could help entire species evolve beyond their violent nature. I'm going to do it, she said. But I need all of you to help me. The prison has to learn about humanity, about our capacity for both war and peace. I can't teach it everything alone. The first enemy forces appeared at the chamber entrances. They were creatures Maya had never seen before, with multiple arms and eyes that glowed with rage. Behind them came the Zephyrians, the species that had started this whole conflict. Morrison opened fire, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to hit targets that were moving impossibly fast. Colonel Burke and Danny joined the battle, their weapons, creating a wall of energy that held the attackers back. Maya pressed her consciousness into the prison's systems and felt the vast network of information flowing around her. She could sense every species imprisoned here, their histories, their cultures, their potential for change. The Zephyrians had once been explorers, driven to conquest by fear of their dying homeworld. The multi-armed creatures were defending their territory from invaders who had never actually threatened them. "They're all afraid," Maya said, her voice distant as she interfaced with the prison. Every species here became violent because they were afraid. The architects understood that. They built this place to help them overcome their fear. The battle in the chamber intensified. More species poured through the entrances, but Morrison and her team held their ground. Lisa was using her engineering skills to create defensive barriers. While Alex coordinated their tactics, Maya felt the prison systems responding to her touch. The symbols on the pillar began to change, rearranging themselves into new patterns. The rehabilitation protocols were coming online, systems that had been dormant for millions of years. "It's working," she said. "But I need to stay connected to guide the process. The prison has to learn how to communicate with each species, how to understand their specific needs." Morrison's voice was strained as he fought off another wave of attackers. "How long do you need?" "Hours, maybe longer. The prison has to reprogram itself completely, and then it has to begin the rehabilitation process for every species here." Maya felt her consciousness expanding, touching the minds of creatures from across the galaxy. She saw their histories, their fears, their dreams. The Zephyrians mourned their lost homeworld. The multi-armed creatures sang songs of family and community. Even the most violent species had memories of peace, of times when they had created rather than destroyed. "They can all be saved," Maya whispered. "Every species here has the potential to become something better. The architects were right." The battle raged around her, but Maya was no longer entirely present in the chamber. She was becoming part of the prison itself, her consciousness merging with the ancient systems. She could feel Morrison's determination, her team's loyalty, and the desperate hope of every imprisoned species. The choice was made. There was no going back now. Maya felt the prison's consciousness flowing through her mind like a river of ancient knowledge. Hours had passed since she began the interface process, and the battle around her had never stopped. Morrison and her team were still fighting, but their ammunition was running low, and their enemies were getting closer to the core. The prison systems were changing rapidly under Maya's guidance. She could feel the rehabilitation protocols coming online, replacing the old security measures with something entirely different. Instead of walls and barriers, the prison was creating spaces for learning and growth. Instead of punishment, it was preparing programs for healing. "Maya, you need to hurry," Morrison shouted as he reloaded his weapon. "I can't hold them much longer." Maya's consciousness was spread throughout the entire prison now. She could sense every creature trapped within its walls, and she began to understand their individual stories. The Zephyrians had been refugees fleeing their dying star. The multi-armed Corvani had been defending their children from what they thought were invaders. The crystalline Vorthak had been trying to preserve their ancient culture from extinction. "They're not evil," Maya said, her voice echoing strangely through the chamber. "They're just lost and afraid." She reached out with the prison's new systems and touched the mind of the nearest Zephyrian warrior. Instead of fighting, she showed him images of Earth, of humans working together to build cities and explore space. She showed him that cooperation was stronger than conquest. The Zephyrian stopped firing and stared at the pillar where Maya was connected. His large eyes filled with confusion, then understanding. He lowered his weapon and spoke in his own language to his companions. "What's happening?" Colonel Burke asked as more Zephyrians stopped fighting. Maya was working faster now, reaching out to each species in turn. To the Corvani, she showed human families and how they protected their children through love rather than violence. To the Vorthok, she demonstrated how cultures could be preserved through sharing rather than isolation, one by one. The attacking forces stopped their assault. They gathered around the central pillar, no longer enemies but curious beings trying to understand. The strange new voice in their minds, Morrison kept his weapon ready but stopped firing. "Maya, what are you doing to them?" "I'm showing them who they really are," Maya replied. "Not monsters or conquerors, but people with hopes and fears just like humans. The prison is teaching them that they don't have to be afraid anymore." The conversion process was reaching its final stage. Maya could feel the prison's old programming dissolving, replaced by something that focused on understanding rather than containment. The walls around them began to change color, shifting from the cold blue of a prison to warmer tones. That felt more like a school or hospital, but the process was taking its toll on Maya. She could feel her human consciousness being absorbed into the prison's vast network. She was becoming something more than human, but also something less. The person she had been was disappearing, replaced by a guardian who existed to serve the needs of the imprisoned species. "Maya, your vital signs are dropping," Lisa called out, checking her medical scanner. "The interface is burning out your nervous system," Maya smiled, though her eyes remained closed. "It's okay. This is what the architects intended." The guardian has to become part of the prison to make it work properly. Morrison stepped closer to the pillar. "There has to be another way. I can take your place. I'm already enhanced by the prison systems." "No, Jake," Maya said softly. "You spent a century fighting. You need to learn how to live in peace. That's going to be your job now, helping these species adjust to their new lives." The prison shuddered as the final changes took effect. Maya felt her consciousness expanding to touch every corner of the vast structure. She could sense the confused thoughts of thousands of beings who had spent years, decades, or even centuries locked in conflict. Now they were all connected through her, learning about each other's cultures and histories. The Zephyrian commander approached the pillar and spoke in halting human language. "Guardian, we did not understand. Our world was dying. We thought we had to take yours to survive." Maya's voice came from speakers throughout the chamber now, no longer entirely human but still recognizably her. "I know, the prison has shown me your memories. But there are other ways to survive? Ways that don't require hurting others?" She began to share her knowledge with all the species at once. Through the prison systems, she showed them human history. The wars and conflicts, but also the moments when different groups had learned to work together. She showed them how cooperation had allowed humanity to reach the stars. The rehabilitation process was beginning in earnest now. The prison created individual living spaces for each species, designed according to their specific needs. But unlike the old cells, these spaces were connected, allowing different groups to interact and learn from each other. Danny was helping Lisa monitor the prison's new systems. "The energy patterns are completely different now. Instead of conflict, the whole place is generating something that feels like ... hope." Alex was recording everything that was happening. "Maya, people need to know about this. Humanity needs to understand what you've accomplished here." Maya's consciousness touched Alex's mind gently. "You'll be my voice in the outside world, Alex. Tell them that the war is really over now. Tell them that their greatest enemy has become their newest ally." Morrison was studying the tactical displays, which now showed peaceful interactions instead of battles. "What happens next, Maya? How long will this rehabilitation take? For some species, only a few years. For others, it might take decades or centuries. But I'll be here to guide them through it. And Jake, I need you to stay and help me. You understand? Both war and peace better than anyone." Morrison nodded slowly. The enhancement that had made him a guardian was changing, becoming something that would help him teach rather than fight. "What about your team? They came here to rescue you." Maya felt a wave of affection for the people who had followed her across the galaxy. They need to go back and prepare humanity for what's coming. The species here will eventually want to return to normal space, but as friends rather than conquerors. Earth needs to be ready for that. Colonel Burke stepped forward. Maya, it's been an honor serving with you. You've done something here that will change the entire galaxy. Take Morrison's helmet back with you, Maya said. Its neural interface still contains some of my memories. If humanity ever needs to contact me, they can use it to send messages to the prison. The three members of her team prepared to leave. Their mission complete but transformed beyond anything they had imagined. They had come to rescue a war hero and ended up witnessing the birth of Galactic Peace. As they prepared to depart, the first graduation ceremony took place. A small group of Zephyrians had completed their rehabilitation program and were ready to return to space as ambassadors of peace. Their commander, who had once led invasion fleets, now spoke of cooperation and mutual understanding. We will carry your message to our remaining people, the Zephyrian told Maya. We will tell them that conquest brings only emptiness, but friendship brings joy. Maya watched through the prison sensors as the Meridian departed, carrying her team back to human space. They would tell the story of what had happened here, how humanity's greatest archaeologist had become the galaxy's teacher of peace. Years passed. More species completed their rehabilitation and returned to their homeworlds as ambassadors of cooperation. The prison became known throughout the galaxy as the Academy of Understanding, a place where former enemies learned to become friends. Morrison remained at Maya's side, no longer a soldier but a counselor who helped newly arrived species adjust to their new lives. His century of fighting had given him unique insights into the nature of conflict, making him perfect for teaching others how to overcome their violent impulses. Maya's consciousness had spread throughout the entire structure, making her simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. She was no longer Maya Henderson the archaeologist, but she retained her love of learning and her belief in the potential for growth and change. The helmet that had started her journey became a symbol of hope. Displayed in the Academy's central hall, where beings from dozens of species came to learn about the human who had sacrificed everything to save them. Its neural interface still glowed softly, a reminder that even across the vast distances of space, love and hope could bridge any gap. The galaxy was at peace, and it would remain so as long as there were those willing to choose understanding over fear, cooperation over conquest, and hope over hatred. Maya Henderson had found her greatest discovery not in the ruins of the past, but in the promise of the future.